Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 23. Ekuna vinshe vinshatme vrishnushu prape janmani Ram Krishna viti bhuvo Bhagwan harad bharam.
In the 19th and 20th incarnations, the Lord advented himself as Lord Balram and Lord Krishna in the family of Rishi, the Yadu dynasty, and by so doing, he removed the burden of the world.
Text 24. Tatah kalo sampravite sammohaye surdvi dishvasham buddho namnanjun sutaha kikteshu bhavishyati.
Then, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theists.
Text 25. Athaso yug sandhyayam dasyu prayeshu rajasu janita vishnu yashaso namna kalkir jagatpatihi.
Thereafter, at the conjunction of two yugas, the Lord of the creation will take his birth as the Kalki incarnation and become the son of Vishnu Yasha. At this time, almost all the rulers of the earth will have degenerated into plunderers.
Text 26. Avtara he sankhe sankhya hare satva nidhir divirjaha yatha vidasinah kulyaha sarsaha sihu sahasrashaha.
O Brahmanas, the incarnation of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water.
Text 27.
I'm going to Arjun.
Text 27. Rishyo manvo deva manu putra moho jasaha kala sarve hare rev sa prajapatyah samritaha.
All the rishis, Manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis.
Text 28. Ete chanshkalaha punsaha krishnastu bhagwan swayam indrarivya kulam lokam mudyanti yuge yuge.
All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portion or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists.
Text 29. Janam guhyam bhagavato ya et pratyato narha sayam pratra ganan bhaktya dukh gramadi vamuchyate.
Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life.
Text 30. एतद्रूपं भगवतो हया रूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि.
The conception of the Virat universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form.
Text 31. यथा नभसि मेघोघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो नीले एवं दृष्टरि दृष्ट्वा मारोपितं बुद्धिभिः.
Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the air is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self.
Text 32. अतः परम यद्व्यक्तं मवयुण ब्रहितम् अदृष्टाश्रुतवस्तु तस्तजीवो यत् पुनर्भवः.
Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his forms beyond this subtlety. Otherwise, he could not have repeated births.
Text 33. यत्रे मे सदस्द्रूपे प्रतिषिद्धे स्वसंविदा अविद्यात्मनि कृते इति तद् ब्रह्मदर्शनम्.
Whenever
Sorry, Mataji, could you wait a minute, please? There's some disruption in the background. Hare
Sorry, dear reciters, please unmute yourselves.
Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and the subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord.
Text 34. यथेशोपर्ता देवी माया विशारदी मतिः संपन्न एवति विदुर्महि मनि स्वे महीयते.
If the illusionary energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory.
Text 35. एवं जन्मानि कर्माणि हे कर्तुर्जनस्य च वर्णयन्ति समकव्यो वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पते.
Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart.
Text 36. सवा इदं विश्वमग्मोघलीलः सजत्यवत्यति न सज्जतस्मिन् भूतेषु चान्तर्हित आत्मतन्त्र षाड्वर्गिकं जिघ्रति षड्गुणेषु गुणेशः.
The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent.
Text 37. नाचास्य कश्चिन्निपुणेन धातु रवेति जन्तुः कुम्नेश ऊतिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः सन्तन्वतो नाट्चार्या विमिवाग्यः.
The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words.
Text 38. सवेद धातुः पद्विं परस्य दुरन्त वीर्यस्य रथङ्गपाणिः यो मायया सन्ततयानुवृत्त्या भजेत तत्पाद सरोजगन्धम्.
Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence.
Text 39. अथेह धन्या भगवन्त इत्थं यद्वासुदेवेऽखिलोकनाथे कुर्वन्ति सर्वात्मकामात्मभावं न यत्र भूयः परिव्रत उग्रः.
Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries invoke transcendental aesthetic love onto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes and guaranteed 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death.
Text 40. Idam bhagavatam nam puranam brahm samhitam uttam shlok charitam chakar bhagvanarishi nishesyaye lokasya dhanyam swasatyanam mahat.
This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literally incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect.
Tadidam grahayama sutmatvatam varam sarvvedeti hasanam saram saram samudritam.
Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of the all Vedic literature and histories of the universe.
Text 42. Satu sanshraveyamas maharajam parikshitam prayopavistam ganayam paritam param rishibhihi.
Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink.
Text 43. Krishna savdhamopagte dharam jnanadibhihi saha kalo nashta drishamesh purana roko dhunoditaha.
This Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Puran.
Text 44. Tatra kirtayato vipra vipreshirbhuri tejasaha aham chadhyagam mattata tatra nivishta sat danugrahat soham vah shravishyami yatha dhitam yatha mati.
O learned Brahmanas, when Sukadev Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of the Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus, by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, very nice recitations. Thank you, Girish Prabhuji and Shabani Mataji. Beautiful recitations. Thank you.
Mataji, Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Is Prayagraj, Prabhuji, have you joined? Oh, there you are. Hari
Yes,
Bol.
I am.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We are on the last verse of this very important chapter. So let's start. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3rd, 44th verse. So let's chant. Tatra kirtayato vipra viprarshir bhuvitejasah aham chadhyagamam drashta gamam tatra nivishtas tadanugrahat soham vah shravayishyami yathadhitam yathamati. Tatra kirtayato vipra viprarshir bhuritejasah aham chadhyagamam tatra nivishtas tadanugrahat soham vah shravayishyami yathadhitam yathamati. Tatra kirtayato vipra viprarshir bhuritejasah aham chadhyagamam tatra vivishtas tadanugrahat soham vah shravayishyami yathadhitam yathamati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O learned Brahmanas. Oh, I will share my screen. Give me 1 second. I think everyone can see my screen.
Yes,
You can
Prabhuji.
follow the translation. Yeah. O learned Brahmanas, when Shukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus, by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from the great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. Purport by Prabhupada. One can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. If one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami, one cannot, however, learn Bhagavatam from a bogus hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn some money out of such recitation and employ the earning in sex and indulgence. No one can learn Srimad Bhagavatam who is associated with persons engaged in sex life. That is the secret of learning Bhagavatam. Nor can one learn Bhagavatam from one who interprets the text by his mundane scholarship. One has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative of Shukadeva Goswami, and no one else if one at all wants to see Lord Krishna in the pages. That is the process, and there is no alternative. Suta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Shukadeva Goswami because he wants to present the message which he received from the great learned Brahmana. Shukadeva Goswami presented Bhagavatam as he heard it from his great father, and so also Suta Goswami is presenting Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Shukadeva Goswami. Simple hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. The word nivishta means the Shukadeva Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through his ears. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. The secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the pages, in person, in the pages of Bhagavatam. Thus, end of the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So let's chant the verse again, and then we will start our prayers and we can do our discussions. Tatra kirtayato vipra viprarshir bhuritejasaha aham chadhyagamam tatra nivishtas tadanugraha soham vah shravayishyami yathadhitam yathamati. Translation is, O learned Brahmanas, when Shukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam, there, in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus, by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshuromilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadhantam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamanam Shri Ganaraghunatham Sajivam Sa Advaitam Sa Vadhutam Parijana Chaitanya Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saharana Lalita Shri Shakhanitam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haritye Panchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaurav Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langayate giri, yat kripatamaham vande, Shri Guru Dinataranam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram, Paramananda Madhavam. Yam pravrjetamupeta krityam, vaipayano virahaka tara aju ava. Utrepi tanmayatayo tarvo viridis, tam sarvabhutarudayam nimanatosmi. Rantah pravishya mama chamivam prasutam. Sanjeevayatya akhila shaktidhara swadhamma. Anyamscha hasta charana shravana pavadi. Pranan namo bhagavate purushaya. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to discuss this very, very powerful, very important verse. So this verse is basically telling us right from the beginning the formula, or in a current style of education, do's and don'ts type of thing. So as we discuss this, we will come to know what to do and what not to do and how to do. How to drink the nectar, the immortal nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Amrita, because it is eternal. And why Bhagavatam is eternal? Was it just recited when Maharaj Parikshit was listening and Shukadeva Goswami was reciting, or just Srila Vyasadeva wrote it and it is at the beginning of Bhagavatam? We will discuss that as well. So after, in do's and don'ts, we will just discuss some of the pastimes, and at the end we will discuss an interesting story. I think most of you might know the story of Dundukari. How many of you know the story of Dundukari? His father was Atmadev. Can anyone give me some idea?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
I think we
Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
covered this story a little while back as well, Prabhu.
Okay. So I think a lot of you know. Still we will discuss for our purification. Yeah. So as Prabhupada says here, that one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam. To relate to this statement by Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas as well, the simple analogy we can think of is when we read the book, we are actually listening to the writer, the person who is telling something to us. It's instead of that gross sound, we are just listening through the written pages. So earlier, before the art of writing in the modern history, everything was Shruti and Smriti. So Shruti means hearing and reciting. And that's how the Vedic knowledge was passed on from generations to generations in certain lineage. And Smriti means then people started codifying or writing it down as the time progressed. But the original purpose of Vedic literature, dissemination of Vedic literature, the process is through hearing, Shruti. And here Sutta Goswami says exactly the same thing. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. So the translation of this verse itself is giving us certain idea of the process. He says that in presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. So hearing with rapt attention, very important do. Thus by his mercy, there has to be an element of mercy second very important point. Third very important point is the eagerness to learn Srimad Bhagavatam. Fourth important point is the great and powerful sage. The person has to be very realized, self-realized, very great and powerful personality. That means the spiritual master has certain qualifications, and we will discuss about the spiritual master as well in few minutes. And then he says, now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing. So that means there is no possibility of tampering anything. You are supposed to say things as it is. And that's why our Sampradaya, Prabhupada has always emphasized everything on as it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is. And here he says, now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing. That means he is not changing anything, no addition, no deletion, as it is. As I learned it from him. So with rapt attention, he learned from Shukadeva Goswami and he has practiced it. I have realized it. Realize means practiced it. So here the word Brahmana comes. Vipra means Brahmana. I think we have either already discussed or you all must be knowing. There are 3 stages of Brahmana. The first is the Dvija, when your spiritual master recognizes that this person is eligible to become Brahmana. So that means Dvija. So that time the spiritual master gives you the Gayatri mantra and the sacred thread. The second stage is the person becomes very well versed in the Vedic literature as per the Sampradaya. We should not be diverting what we are supposed to follow. If, for example, if we are in a Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we are supposed to follow the literature of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. The literatures of other Sampradaya are for the followers of those Sampradayas or the lineages. So that's very important point. And then the second point is the Vipra, when the person becomes very well versed in the Vedic literature of that Sampradaya. And the third point is the person actually starts practicing it. When you practice it very properly, rigidly, then we realize that knowledge. Example is, for example, in Banaras, in Varanasi, in India, there are a lot of Gurukuls there. And there are small little children who are there in that Gurukul. They are learning all the shlokas, the Vyakaran, the different Vedic literature. But those kids, they don't understand the meaning of that or the core meaning of those verses. They're just learning it. So again, as we see, for example, Vedic literature, the Vedas, will give us how to live life in the material world properly with a complete scope of sense gratification or material satisfaction, the prosperity. But the same Vedic literature, the same shloka, the same verse will give an understanding of detachment as well. How? That is as per the consciousness of the person who is studying and trying to understand it. So I think every literature, every religious literature or every spiritual literature, whether it is Bible or Quran or our Vedic literature or Buddhist literature, it has that hidden meaning of renunciation, but apparent meaning is how to have a regulated material life. So 2 aspects of it. For example, if somebody wants to study Mahabharata, or they can just read that as a story of more than 100,000 verses. But if somebody learns it properly from the verses, that person will get the meaning of how to live life and what to do, what not to do, so many other things, and the facets of lives of Pandavas and Kauravas and Bhishmadev, and of course the instructions of the Supreme Lord. So they will get the hidden meaning as well. But that hidden meaning is not complete. When the person has that mood of bhakti, that surrender, that submissiveness, that time the person will get the third meaning, which is the meaning of the purpose of life, of that surrender, the devotion to the Lord. The same Mahabharata, but we get first is the literal meaning, which is called Shabda Bhashya. The second is called Guhya Bhashya, hidden meaning. And the third one is called Bhakti Bhashya, or the what do you call? It is the Vishuddha Bhashya, the pure meaning of the literature. So, and it is applicable to all the Vedic literature. For example, Holy Quran says that if you go to the heaven, then you will get so many things, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, if someone is following that discussions about different religious aspects, they will get all sorts of controversial things there. But that Quran is telling that this will not satisfy you. The first chapter of Quran is about the cow. And Allah says that, yes, if you give me the cow, which is maiden, which is very beautiful, which is perfect, that will satisfy me. Then they sacrifice the cow, and Allah says that your heart has become stone. She was not perfect. My expectation is not the same. What your understanding is. And it goes on. That's the first chapter. And then there are many other facets, the women, then the creation, and everything is there in Quran. So what does that mean? Sacrificial of that animal is important, or no? The satisfaction of Allah is important. People can say, yes, sacrifice is very important, and they will stop there. That's the meaning the person will get in the literal perspective. But the sacrifice in terms of giving, the surrender, is also there at the same time in Quran. A little bit of diversion. Let's come back to our verse here. So that's what the do's and don'ts in this verse are. So let's come to the point of our what we should follow. So we were discussing about the writer when he writes something. What we expect is that the person, if the writer has written something, the writer must be expecting the person who is reading my writing should pay full attention to understand my heart. And this is written by none other than Srila Vyasadeva, who is literary incarnation of the Lord himself. So there is a reason why Prabhupada says that you will understand the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam, provided that we have complete attention, full surrender to this, the greatest literature. And the verse comes to our mind is written is the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, written in Chaitanya Mathamanjusha by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. The verse is as follows. Aradhya Bhagwan Brajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachita Upasna Vrajavadhu Vargenya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Kumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradarha Napara. The meaning is like this. Aradhya Bhagwan. Aradhya means worshipable. Bhagwan, the Supreme Lord. Brajesha Tanayas, the Isha, the Lord of Vrindavan, who is the Krishna. But here, there is no Lord of Dwarka, or there is no Lord of Mathura. But specifically, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intention is, our mood is to worship the Lord of Vrindavan, who is in the mood of Vrindavan. The Brajesha Tanayas is the supremely beautiful. The Dhama Vrindavan, and we are supposed to worship Vrindavan, the Dhama Vrindavan as well. Why? Because the 10th chapter, Arjun says this, confirms this. Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Majam Vibhum. So what is supreme? His Dhama is supreme. The Lord is supreme. His divinity is supreme. Everything is supreme. The topmost. And that's what we are supposed to worship. Aradhya Bhagwan Brajesha Tanaya Sardhama Vrindavanam. Ramya Kachita Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargenaya Kalpita. How we should worship and whom we should worship? The Vrajavadhu, the damsels of Vrindavan, the gopis of Vrindavan, because their mood is perfect, which is beyond anybody else's even imagination. Their mood of surrender. Ramya Kachita, they are so engrossed. Upasana, Vrajavadhu, how they are worshiping Upasana. They are worshipping the Lord. How? Vargenaya Kalpita. In their this is in Sanskrit, this is Dvartha Alankar. There is that a class of worship is there in their imagination, in their life and soul, is just to complete surrender towards the Lord. And it is the another aspect of it is others, we cannot even imagine that kind of worship if we are not pure enough. So that's the Dvartha, dual meaning of the same verse. We were discussing about the Shabda Bhashya, Guhya Bhashya, and Vishuddha Bhashya, Samadhi Bhashya, which is the third type of Bhashya. So Srimad Bhagavatam is purely in Samadhi Bhashya. To understand Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to follow the regulations of what we are going to discuss very soon. So, Ramya Kachita Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargenaya Kalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam. The standard of Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest. Amala. It's a spotless Puran. There is no material contamination to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan. It will, if we have that rapt attention towards Srimad Bhagavatam, we will have the understanding of the highest objective of human life, which is the understanding of love of Godhead, love of Krishna. Yeah, and that is our objective, to understand, to have that reciprocal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, love, the loving reciprocation, infinite love, unlimited, uninterrupted loving relationship. That is what the third line is. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan. Prema means love. And who says this? That's the fourth line. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatra Daraha Napara. So Srila Chakravarti Thakur says that it is the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatra Daraha Napara. There is nothing higher than that. If it is the opinion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Devotee of the Lord, who is God Himself, can anything be higher than this? Can anyone has any point to debate that this is yes or no? No, don't have. Because Mahaprabhu says this is the highest, that means it is the highest. We should accept it as it is because it is the word of Supreme Lord. So that's